Hello and welcome to 3-Inning Fan, the podcast with me, Kelley Franco. We have a great show coming up for you today. I know you're going to love it. We're about 10% into the MLB season, and it has not disappointed. The Mets are in first place and also made some headlines this week with a little Soto drama. I'm here to cut through the muck and quell the panic. The Yankees are also in first and are putting on a power display with, of course, Aaron Judge, and then someone else who might surprise you. There have been a few duds as far as other MLB teams go, and we will look at two that matter to New York baseball fans. We will also take a look at the powerful NL West and some World Baseball Classic news. And because the attorney in me regrettably won't go away, I take a super quick look at how taxes affect ball players. Did you know they have to pay taxes in almost every state they play in? Let's get on it. We are going to start off with the Mets. Now, overall, the Mets are playing great, although it was a little tarnished this week when they let the Twins take 2 games of that 3-game series they played out in Minnesota. The Mets are in first place. Have they had an easy schedule? Yes. Does it matter? No. They're doing exactly what they need to do, beating up on the weaker teams, with the exception of the Twins this week. There was a bit of a dust-up this week about an interview Juan Soto gave to Mike Puma of the New York Post. The background is that Soto, while having a .409 on-base percentage at the time of the comments, which is good, isn't hitting the ball the way Soto normally does. Okay, is this newsworthy? I think it is, but not in the way that a lot of people on X thought it was. I think it's just what's going on. Let's talk about it for a minute. Soto said to Puma, quote, "It's definitely different. I had the best hitter in baseball hitting behind me. I was getting more attacked and more pitches in the strike zone, less intentional walks and things like that. I was pitched differently last year." The reference obviously being to Aaron Judge hitting behind him last year. The New York baseball community on X was abuzz about this. Mets fans were saying Soto was baited and it was a nothing burger. Yankee fans were saying he missed the Yankees and Judge. I disagree with both of these takes. A few things here. First of all, Soto didn't get baited by Puma. Mike Puma doesn't do that. He's a respected New York reporter. He's been around for decades. And Soto also is savvy enough to know his way around an interview. He's too smart to get baited. So the last thing is, Soto doesn't miss the Yankees. He has 765 million reasons not to. He's moved on. I would add that Soto was not wrong. He is pitched too differently. He's seeing fewer fastballs and more of the breaking stuff. And I've heard it reported that he has seen fewer pitches in the zone this year. However, Alonso has been hitting behind him this year, and while Alonso was an Aaron Judge, he has been absolute nails this season. But two things can be true. Soto wasn't wrong, but also Soto maybe shouldn't have said this out loud because it creates a distraction. Also, it could come off as a diss to Alonso. Soto is not in a slump, okay? And in time, he will excel. He's getting on base, and he's hit 3 home runs. However, let's be honest. He has not been getting the clutch hits like the $765 million player he should be either. But it's only been 19 games. I have no doubt that he is going to be the player that Mets fans dreamed he was going to be. And if the Mets are in first place without him hot, think how they're going to be once he is hot. Still, the Mets had an ugly loss to the Twins on Wednesday. They had come back from 3-0 to tie the game. Then they lost it in the 10th inning. Soto was 0 for 5 in that game, including 3 strikeouts and hitting into an unassisted double play with the bases loaded in the 5th. Last night, he was hitless with a walk against the Cardinals. So what's the problem? Look, I'll leave the mechanics of hitting to people who've actually played, okay? But I am qualified to say this. Juan Soto doesn't look like the fun Juan Soto I've been seeing for years. I'm not seeing the Soto shuffle. I'm not seeing smiles. I'm not seeing laughter. I'm not seeing that nodding thing that he would do toward pitchers when he looks like he's outsmarting them right about when they're going to throw their next pitch. He doesn't look relaxed. And the truth is, he doesn't look confident. Okay? Again, I have no doubt that he will look that way someday soon, but it's not here yet. But between us chickens, I'm surprised. I see Soto as someone who loves the limelight, loves the pressure, and I thought he was going to excel right out of the gate. So we have to wait a bit. It'll come. And I believe that once it does, it won't stop. Until Soto gets there, he may see the ugly underbelly of the $765 million contract, the one where New York fans get impatient when superstars don't perform. If he doesn't start Soto-sizing within the next few weeks, he could hear the boo birds. Not from me, I don't do that, but from some. It's part of the process, and it's part of playing in New York. Soto is here for 15 years, and like any 15-year relationship, there are going to be good days and bad. Let's talk about this stuff on the field. The Mets have some infield, outfield issues going on. Mets second baseman Brett Baty and Luis Acuna have both had their chances so far this season. Of the two, neither one has really shined, but Baty's been weaker, both in hitting and in the field. He's made some big errors and also some other defensive plays that weren't technically errors, but just didn't get the job done. It's a small sample size, but Baty has been afforded many big league opportunities. Going back to like 2022, I think is when we first saw him. He just hasn't been able to be consistent at the plate. Jeff McNeil is due back around the end of April. That's right around the corner. And when he returns, either Baty or Acuna will likely be demoted. My guess is that Baty will go because Acuna at least offers more solid defense, and because he's so fast, he offers base running off the bench. Now, McNeil won the batting title back in 2022 with a 326 average, but he slowed down a bit in 2023, hitting 270, still good, and then a more regular 238 in 2024. Now, while 2024 was a disappointment, it's still a huge upgrade no matter how you slice it against Acuna and Baty. And don't forget, McNeil had a good second half of 2024, so hopefully he can pick up where he left off. Point being, no matter how you slice it, it's going to be an upgrade over Acuna and Baty, and brighter days lie ahead. But then there was another little twist. Center fielder Jose Siri fractured his left tibia when he fouled a ball off his shin last weekend. Tyrone Taylor, who had been sharing the center field responsibilities with Siri, will likely take over the bulk of the center field job. But we heard that Jeff McNeil was taking reps in center field in his rehab starts. So would Mendoza be putting McNeil in center field? I don't know why. He is less experienced than Taylor. And Mendoza also has Starling Marte and Brandon Nimmo to pick from. They're both center fielders. They've both played center field and have significant experience there. And no, in case you're wondering, I would not put Acuna in center field. Yeah, he played a little center field in the minors, but come on. Taylor, Nimmo, and Marte should be the choices. I don't think you want someone with limited center field experience patrolling out there. Alvarez also began a minor league rehab assignment this week. Remember him? Your starting catcher broke his hamate bone. Well, Anthony DiComo, MLB beat writer for the Mets, reported that Alvarez had a strong chance of returning before the end of April, which to me seems ahead of schedule. When he first went down, we were hearing May. Getting him back will hopefully add some power to the lineup, although I have absolutely no gripes with the way Luis Torrens and Hayden Senger have filled in. And I don't think Mendoza did either. That's why I think Alvarez will be eased back in. I expect Torrens will see more playing time than a regular backup catcher, not just the old day game after a night game. Especially when Alvarez first returns, returns, insiders believe it'll be almost a 50-50 split between him and Terrence. Lastly, Sean Manaea has resumed throwing. He's rehabbing from a strained oblique, but he will need his whole spring training back up. So we're looking at late May or early June for his return to the team. But guess what? The Mets are leading MLB in ERA. That's a 2.38 ERA as of yesterday. So the pitching, both starting and bullpen, have been strong, and they will only get better when Manaea returns. Let's hop to the Yankees. I was singing the blues earlier this week because I had this strong feeling that the Yankees were not playing like they could get up off the mat. And it wasn't just me. I was at the stadium on Sunday when they were playing the Giants. And after Jung-Hoo Lee's 3-run homer that allowed the Giants to take a 4-3 lead, it was like all the air came out of the crowd. It was like even the fans couldn't get off the mat. But then they had a great week. They swept the Royals, and they had a comeback win against the Rays last night. They need to beat up on the Rays for this 4-game series. So things are looking up. Let me tell you something about playing the Rays. I really like these games at George M. Steinbrenner Field because they will be like home games for the Yankees. They have always had a lot of fans down there in Tampa St. Pete, but now they have the added benefit of knowing that field. Even though they're in the visitors' clubhouse, they're not visitors. The Yankees' hospitality in letting the Rays play there while Tropicana Field is rehab earned them another 6 home games this season. Let's talk about Aaron Judge. He has been sick, and that's in the way the kids use the word. Going into last night's game, he was hitting an MLB best, 409, with 7 home runs, 21 RBI, and a 1.322 OPS. That puts him on track for approximately 7 million home runs this year. And he's not just hitting meaningless home runs or other garden variety hits. He had the decisive tie-breaking hit, a home run, of course, in the 7th inning of Wednesday night's game against the Royals, completing the sweep. Can he possibly sustain this pace? My inclination is to say no, but I really don't want to bet against Aaron Judge. You know who else is cooking? Ben Rice. See what I did there? He has been a hitting leadoff, mostly supplanting Austin Wells. When asked why, Aaron Boone simply said, he's killing the ball. And he is. Going into last night's game, Rice is hitting .273 with an incredible 5 home runs. Although Rice certainly had his moments of power last year, don't forget he had that game against the Red Sox where he hit 3 home runs in that game. It just seems like he's blooming into a power hitter this year. He's hitting with the 5th highest exit velo in MLB. Where did this newfound power come from? Apparently, he's put on about 10 pounds dating back to last June. He showed up to spring training lean, but with muscle. He attributed the 10-pound muscle gain to eating lots of chicken and, wait for it, rice. I'm not making that up. Rice has been a godsend to this Yankee lineup that lost a huge bat when Giancarlo Stanton went down. While Rice won't ever be Stanton, he has been a formidable surprise this season. A discouraging tweet I saw from MLB Yankee beat reporter Brian Hoke on Wednesday. He said that Luis Gil was scheduled to resume a throwing program this week, but he had been pushed back about 10 days. Gil had an MRI, and Aaron Boone said the doctors wanted to see more healing before he started throwing. As you know, Gil is on the IL for a high-grade lat strain. Yankee pitching was crippled by Gil's injury and, of course, Garrett Cole's season-canceling elbow surgery. But some good news this week. Clark Schmidt returned from injury and started Wednesday's game against the Royals. He went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 4 hits and 3 earned runs, but it was good for the first outing back. It was a glimmer of good news for a Yankee starting pitching staff that hasn't had much to smile about lately. So, maybe you saw my 3-inning minute on tax issues. But here we go. This week we had tax day on April 15th, and it prompted me to take a look at how ball players are affected by taxes. Don't hang up. I swear this will be interesting. Understanding the tax side of baseball is part of understanding the business of baseball. So just stick with me. I promise it'll be 2 minutes. So remember, this is not legal advice. So if you are considering signing a 15-year, $765 million contract, you really should get your own tax advisor. When choosing a team, a ball player considers a variety of factors, like what team is going to be the best fit for their family and for their careers, where they can win a championship, the length of their contract, and, of course, money. Now, taxes are not the most glamorous factor, but they are a factor that needs to be considered. MLB players and other professional athletes don't just pay state and local income tax in the state where the team they play for is located. They're subject to the Jock tax. What's the Jock tax? Well, it's an informal name. It's probably got some long, very legally sounding name. But the Jock tax means they have to pay state or local income tax in every state or municipality they play in that has the Jock tax. It's prorated based on the number of games they play in that state or municipality. And you'll often see MLB contracts designed to avoid state income taxes. For example, Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic reported last week that Vladdy Guerrero's new $500 million contract with the Blue Jays will allocate $325 million to a signing bonus. Why? Signing bonuses in MLB contracts are attributed to a player's state of residence. And Guerrero is a Florida resident, and Florida doesn't have an income tax. So he might just avoid state income tax on 65% of his contract. Now, note that Guerrero's signing bonus is not payable in one lump sum at the beginning. It is payable over the life of his contract. And don't forget, a couple of years ago, we saw Shohei Ohtani's $700 million contract he signed with the Dodgers. That was 2023. California has one of the highest state income tax rates in the country. But remember, $680 million of Ohtani's contract is deferred, payable starting in 2034. And of course, by then, Ohtani might just happen to decide to live somewhere else. Taxes also affect the choice of team for free agents. When former Mets ace Jacob deGrom picked the Texas Rangers in 2022, his 5-year, $185 million contract was that much richer for Texas not having a state income tax. And then you have a state like Massachusetts where they passed a millionaire's tax, which means there's an extra 4% tax on income over $1 million. So that state income tax plus 4% if an athlete picks Massachusetts. Then there's the A's, who are playing in a high-tax state in a minor league ballpark. Who's going to want to play there? No one, until they move to Las Vegas, where there's no state income tax. So there's your ball player tax primer. I hope you learned something new. Please drop it in the comments if it was painful. Panic alert. There are some struggling teams in MLB right now. The White Sox, the Pirates, the Nationals, the Rockies. But there are two I want to focus on because they matter to our New York teams. First, the Orioles. They are in second to last place in the AL East, just a few points above the Rays. Why? Starting pitching. They lost ace Corbin Burns in free agency in the offseason to the Diamondbacks. They have 7 starters on the injured list. Now, some of them they knew were going to be there. They knew that Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells would miss most or all of the season. But spring brought an injury to Grayson Rodriguez, and then the early season put Zach Eflin on the IL. The thing that has to be driving Orioles fans nuts is that their billionaire owner and O's fan, David Rubenstein, bought the O's last year and everyone thought their ship had come in. Heck, I did too. I probably said right here on this show that Orioles fans had gotten their Steve Cohen. So wouldn't you think billionaire David Rubenstein would have splurged on some pitching in the offseason, either in trying to keep Burns or in replacing him with an ace once it was clear they wouldn't be able to retain Burns. They didn't. They signed 41-year-old Charlie Morton to a one-year deal and some other small signings. The writing was on the wall that they needed an ace, and they didn't get one. What good is being a billionaire if you're not going to spend your money? Orioles fans got a poor man Steve Cohen. And their offense has also been meh. Whether you're looking at batting average or OPS, they are hovering around the league median. Jackson Holliday, who we all pegged as a future Hall of Famer, and again, he might still get there, but he's hitting .216 as of yesterday with a .623 OPS. Gunnar Henderson, he's at .214, and Colton Cowser, last year's runner-up Rookie of the Year, is hitting .125. That's just brutal. The good news for O's fans is that they've won 2 games in a row, and their bats may be starting to wake up. Their manager, Brandon Hyde, better hope so, because the rumors are flying that he has lost the clubhouse and that his job could be on the line. It's too early to panic for any team, but O's fans are probably ready for their pitching and hitting to take off. Let's talk about the Braves for a minute. The Orioles are not nearly as bad as the Braves, the perennial rival to the Mets, but they don't seem very rivalous this year. The Braves are in last place in the NL East, playing a dismal .278 ball. The Braves, .278. Why? Well, pitching again. Reynaldo Lopez is out for maybe the whole season. Chris Sale, last year's NL Cy Young winner, has a 6.63 ERA over 4 starts. And Spencer Schwellenbach has been their only decent starter. Spencer Strider returned this week after being out for a year or so, maybe a little more, after that elbow surgery he had. He took the loss in Wednesday's start against the Jays, but he did go 5 innings. He gave up only 2 earned runs and had 5 strikeouts. It was a solid return to the mound for him. Oh, and don't forget, their only good offseason signing, Jurickson Profar, has been suspended for PEDs. The Braves' offense is even worse than the Orioles, firmly planted in the bottom half of MLB, both in batting average and OPS. The Braves were decimated by injuries last year, and now they have Strider back, and they're hoping to have Ronald Acuna back. It can't come soon enough if you're a Braves fan. I don't want to say they're cooked because it's too early, and 6 teams from each league make the postseason, so you never know what's going to happen. But for New York baseball fans, it's not the worst thing in the world that the O's and the Braves are off to slow starts. Have you taken a look at the NL West? Or maybe you haven't because you don't want to feel inadequate. 4 teams, that's the whole division besides the Rockies, are on fire. Starting in first place, you got the Padres, the Giants, the Dodgers, and then the Diamondbacks. The Padres, the Giants, and the Dodgers are all playing over 700 ball, and the Diamondbacks are just below that. The Dodgers are good because, of course, they are. But lo and behold, the Padres and Giants are emerging as legitimate contenders. The Padres weren't particularly active last offseason, and there was talk about trading Luis Arise, Dylan Cease, or Michael King, but there's not much talk of that these days. Their pitching is second in MLB and ERA. That's right behind the Mets. So, yeah, they've been a surprise. And I saw the Giants play at Yankee Stadium last Sunday, and they looked very strong. Now, they added Willy Adames in the offseason, but he hasn't quite come around yet. I'm sure he will. But they have good starting pitching and good bullpen. Jung-Hoo Lee had 2 homers in the game I saw. But they also have a new front office there at the Giants. Buster Posey replaced Farhan Zahidi as head of baseball ops, and people are saying that that's been a really positive change for the club. I said that we could see, I think, 3 teams out of the NL West in my last show, but now, you know what? It's not going to be a surprise if we see 4. Let's talk about the World Baseball Classic for a minute because we had some news this week. It's going to be played in March 2026, and it's going to be here before we know it. But so the news this week was good news. Did you see Aaron Judge play in the 2023 WBC? No, because he wasn't in it. And apparently he had some major FOMO because he's going to be in the next one now. Aaron Judge will not only be playing in the 2026 WBC, but he will be the captain of Team USA, or as he's being called now, Captain America. His presence on Team USA will make the tournament that much more compelling. Other players are going to want to play in it because he's in it. And then the news came down a couple of days ago that Francisco Lindor would be playing in the WBC and would be the captain of the Puerto Rican team. So it's very cool that these two titans of New York baseball are going to be in the WBC as captains. I think you can expect several other sluggers to sign up to be in the WBC. But what you really want to see are our great American pitchers in it, like Paul Skeens, Max Fried, and the like. But teams get skittish about injuries in the WBC, and especially for pitchers. We don't need to remind Mets fans about that. Edwin Diaz suffered an awful knee injury celebrating Team Puerto Rico's win, and he missed the whole 2023 season for the Mets. So how does the WBC recruit good pitchers? Well, very carefully. It's going to be tricky. One idea might be to say that they don't have to pitch throughout the whole tournament. Maybe they save the best pitchers for the later rounds. And when they're trying to win the championship, they'll have their best pitchers out there. I know it sounds kind of conceited, like we're assuming that Team USA will win the earlier rounds, but you know what? It's an option that needs to be considered. All right, let's close it out with what's good to eat while watching the ball game. Last week, I needed a Sunday dinner, and the thing about Sunday dinners is that they have to be a little indulgent. It's actually the law. I'm an attorney, and I know these kind of things. Anyway, so you know what I find indulgent? Any recipe with spicy pork sausage and bread. I just love the flavorful fat that pork sausage renders, and anything that touches that fat, like bread, veggies, pasta, is instantly delicious. So I tried this Ali Slagle recipe from the New York Times that was called sheet pan sausages and mushrooms with arugula and croutons. You take your sausages, I use spicy Italian ones, and roast them in a hot oven with a ton of mushrooms of all varieties. I use shiitake, cremini, portobellos, and some weird ones I didn't know the name of, but thankfully nobody died. And then you take a giant baguette and you tear it into bite-sized pieces. And when the sausages are done, you take the sheet pan out of the oven and toss the fat-laden contents with those bite-sized pieces of bread. And then you put it back in the oven for a few minutes while it toasts up. Then you take it all out and you toss it with some arugula and vinaigrette, and you have a world-class dinner that came together with minimal effort. There may have been a glass of red wine consumed with this meal. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.